Every display screen across 17 warships lit up with the unedited, classified records of their own historical crimes. The secret financial strangulations, the private colonization mandates, and the sterilization order signed 4 nights ago broadcast simultaneously on an unalterable loop across 100 light years. The Armada stood frozen in the glare of its own history. Would you have stood your ground against 17 worlds? Because Director Osai didn't blink. Stay close. 3 weeks earlier, a data needle jumped 3 kilometers beneath the Nigeria Plateau crypt. Dr. Asari tracked a base 12 rhythm buried inside ancient limestone layers. The signal was not an open greeting. It was an enforcement protocol requiring a biological organic anchor to prevent core drift. It was an old machine waking up, looking for a pulse. Director Yara Asai stood in the orbit terminal when the sky filled with metal. 17 multi-mile warships dropped into defensive grid locks, their hulls casting massive shadows over the planetary capital. As did not call a press conference or issue a military threat. Instead, she routed the arriving fleet's main communication arrays into an automated quarantine hold pattern. The heavy cruisers tried to jam the local airspace, but the human intercept grid held its frequency. The Conclave of 17 sent a short text directive demanding immediate, total surrender of the deep excavation sector. As sat at her desk, noticed the flashing red icon, and deliberately adjusted her headset before typing a refusal. She treated the alien arrival like a standard customs delay. Down in the secondary staging hangar, the mining team worked double shifts to clear the path to the chamber. Dr. Asari dragged a loud, illicit coffee machine into the main command post against structural safety rules. The metal rattle of the old filter basket made the guards jump, but it gave the engineers something common to touch. Commander Sorvith Cal bypassed his security escort and stepped onto the high station observation deck. The 4-jointed fingers of his long hand drummed a heavy, uneven beat against his uniform belt. He was a military overseer for the Alliance, but his home world had lost its independence to the same group 2 centuries ago. He looked down at the human defensive grid and saw a familiar pattern. Cal waited until the human security team changed shifts at midnight before entering Asai's private office. He slid a physical data chip across the gray table without saying a word. The plastic piece click-clacked against her metal desk tray. "Your defense counsel is calculating a siege timeline," Cal said, his voice flat and tired. "They are wrong. The ships are already charging their secondary reactors." Asai picked up the chip and dropped it into a hand reader. The display showed the secret voting records of the council from 4 nights ago. The final tally was 13-4 in favor of complete planetary sterilization. "Being terrified doesn't expand our defensive resources," Asai said, watching the numbers reflect across her expressionless face. "It just uses fuel we need for the counter-response." She tapped her console, sending the leaked files directly to the Global Defense Command. Across 5 continents, satellite arrays shifted their focus, angling their dishes toward the center of the Alliance fleet. There was no public warning, no announcement, and no mass panic in the streets. The ground teams simply adjusted their target vectors. The fleet broke the hold queue an hour before dawn, dropping 3 heavy dreadnoughts into lower orbit directly above the plateau. The air grew hot and smelled of sulfur from the massive tracking arrays overhead. As took the service elevator down into the limestone crypt, her face perfectly steady despite the tremor in the walls. Inside the smooth vault, the digital scanners blinked out. The alien jamming field had finally reached the deep rock, killing the radio links back to the surface. Dr. Asari stood by the main structure, holding a worn leather-filled notebook with yellowing grid lines. "The terminal won't accept code input anymore," Asari said, rubbing a smudge of graphite off the paper. "We aren't digging for minerals. We are asking patient questions to old stones that forgot how to talk." "The fleet has 30 seconds before they open fire," Asai said, stepping past the dead screens. "Give it an answer." Asari stripped off his thick leather-work gloves and dropped them on the floor. He stepped up to the smooth limestone table at the center of the room and pressed his bare palm against the cold rock. The human mitochondrial genome possessed a built-in quantum resonance that acted as the physical key to the network. The moment his skin touched the limestone, the entire underground chamber turned into a bright field of white resonance. The machine did not pulse with heat or charge an energy beam. It simply opened a door that had been shut for 1 billion years. The witness mirror did not fire a plasma blast into the sky. Instead, it hooked into every digital, quantum, and analog channel within 100 light years. It took the unedited records from Cal's data chip and sent them to every radio telescope, commercial receiver, and military deck in the sector. No shields raised, no missiles launched, no blood spilled. The Alliance ships hung in the upper atmosphere, their weapon systems fully active but completely still. On every bridge, the crews watched the documentation of their own government's secret treaties and ancient colony purges broadcast to the entire galaxy. The political leverage of the conclave vanished in less than 2 seconds. The weapons on the warships slowly lost power as the alien crews realized they were being watched by 1 billion systems. A text message flashed from the core worlds. The conclave entered a formal retraction of the sterilization mandate. Asai walked out onto the terminal balcony and felt the cool morning breeze. Sorvith Cal stood 3 paces behind her, his long fingers completely still against his belt. A tiny coffee stain showed clearly on Asai's collar, the last remaining trace of the night's chaos. "The artifact isn't designed to destroy empires, Commander," Asai said, watching the heavy cruisers tilt their noses back toward deep space. "It's designed to make them look into a mirror until they correct their geometry." Down in the quiet crypt, Asari opened his field notebook to a fresh page and began to write down the coordinates of the newly activated network. "We didn't inherit an arsenal to fire at the stars. We inherited a mirror to show them what they try to hide in the dark." In the starfield above, 17 empires began the hard work of being seen. On the surface, 8 billion people simply made breakfast.